Magic is a recurring element in various forms of fiction and fantasy. It often serves as a significant plot device, allowing us to immerse ourselves in unique and fantastical worlds. Within the realm of fantasy and fiction, magic is commonly depicted as a dichotomy of light and dark, good and evil. There are acceptable practices of magic, as well as taboo ones. In this video, we will delve into the topic of necromancy, a practice often regarded as black magic or dark witchcraft, a school of magic that should not be pursued. However, this negative perception was not always the case. Today, we will explore the origins of necromancy, its evolution, and examples of its presence today. Before delving further, let us first define necromancy. This term refers to a magical practice centered around communicating with the deceased. It involves summoning their spirits or even raising their physical bodies. As the spirits are no longer part of our world, it is believed that they have access to information about the past, present, and future. The physical raising of the dead is seen in cases where individuals desire to bring back loved ones or employ the dead as weapons to carry out their bidding. The word necromancy originated from the Latin necromancia, derived from the Greek necromantia or necromathia, which meant divination through a dead body. Some of the earliest accounts of necromancy can be found in ancient Greece, Rome, Egypt, and Babylonia. These practices are often compared to shamanism, and initially, there was no stigma or notion of wrongdoing associated with necromancy. This negative perception emerged much later. In ancient Greece, there was a practice called nikia, a rite or ritual where the dead were summoned to provide answers about the future. One notable example of this form of necromancy is found in Homer's Odyssey. The powerful sorceress Circe, capable of both raising the dead and communing with them, teaches many of these spells to the hero Odysseus. Circe advises him to travel to the underworld and perform a nikia to gather the necessary information for his safe return home. In Book 11 of the Odyssey, Odysseus is instructed to raise the spirit of the blind prophet Tiresias. The ritual is described in detail, involving the lighting of a fire in the dark of night and the sacrifice of animals whose blood is offered to the shades or spirits. Reciting the incantations given by Circe, Odysseus encounters several spirits before meeting Tiresias, including his own mother, whom he believed to be alive. Tiresias drinks the blood and imparts the information needed for Odysseus to make it home. He advises him not to eat the cattle of Apollo to avoid incurring divine wrath and reveals that Odysseus will return home alone, without his crew. From this example, it is evident that necromancy was not seen as an inherently evil form of magic, in fact, quite the opposite. Numerous Greek and Roman poets incorporated these rituals into their stories, establishing a common trope of heroes embarking on a physical journey to the underworld, known as a katabasis, to perform tasks or quests, often involving communion with the dead. Those who revived the deceased were referred to as necromancers, and their focus was primarily on summoning recently deceased individuals within a year or two. The rituals associated with necromancy varied, as seen in Homer's Odyssey, where they could involve grotesque practices such as animal sacrifice, mutilation, and consumption of the dead. In other instances, rituals included wearing the clothing of the deceased and consuming symbolic food like blackened bread and unfermented grape juice, representing the decay and lifelessness of death. In conclusion, magic plays a prominent role in fiction and fantasy, captivating readers and viewers alike. Necromancy, specifically, has a complex history and varied depictions. Originally, it was not viewed as inherently evil, and practices such as communicating with the dead and raising their spirits were integrated into ancient Greek and Roman myths. Over time, the perception of necromancy shifted, and it came to be associated with taboo and dark magic. The rituals associated with necromancy differed, ranging from gruesome acts to symbolic gestures. The exploration of magic, including necromancy, continues to captivate audiences in modern storytelling, providing a glimpse into fantastical realms and challenging our perceptions of life and death. The use of objects like talismans and wands alongside incantations was a fairly common practice. However, at some point, necromancy transformed into a dark art, a school of magic that became unacceptable and taboo. This shift is primarily attributed to the medieval period in Europe when the Church intensified its crackdown on magic and witchcraft. Necromancy was condemned as a dangerous practice, labeled by the Church as maleficium, a form of witchcraft associated with harmful intentions. The act of necromancy was equated with summoning demons disguised as spirits. According to the Church, resurrection was an act that could only be performed with the assistance of God. Interestingly, there were clergy members who practiced various degrees of necromancy. These practitioners were highly trained and well-versed in astrology, demonology, exorcism, and combined teachings from Christian, Jewish, and Arabic sources that revolved around necromancy. Necromancers outlined 3 potential outcomes of their practice: gaining knowledge, creating illusions, and manipulating the will of others. These outcomes could be perceived positively or negatively, depending on one's perspective. The Church believed that those outside its ranks would use necromancy to harm others and benefit themselves. On the other hand, those not affiliated with the Church saw necromancy as a means for the Church to control and limit this form of magic for its own benefit. Whether or not one believes in the reality of these rituals and the particular school of magic is a personal choice. The author's stance on necromancy, similar to their stance on the supernatural, myths, and legends, is skeptical. However, they recognize that these stories have generated intriguing ideas and archetypes that continue to influence storytelling. Moving forward, the video delves into more modern examples and explores how the archetype of a necromancer is used in contemporary storytelling. Some well-known franchises feature necromancer characters, such as Sauron in Tolkien's works, who is referred to as the necromancer among his many titles. Although raising the dead is not prominently depicted in the movies, Middle-earth's history, as documented in Volume 10, Morgoth's Ring, reveals Sauron's capability to commune with the dead, enslave them, and harness their knowledge. Other examples include characters from the Mortal Kombat franchise, Shang Tsung and Quan Shi, who assumed the roles of warlocks and sorcerers dabbling in necromancy to raise armies of the undead for their masters. Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter also practices necromancy, raising an army of skeletons and zombies during the First Wizarding War. Similar themes can be found in Game of Thrones, with the White Walkers and the Night King raising the dead with a mere gesture. While many of these examples portray necromancy as an evil art, it is worth noting that necromancy wasn't always associated with darkness, and not all necromancers are depicted as villains. Odysseus, the hero of Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, is one such example. In the Marvel Universe, Shuri, the sister of Black Panther, possesses the ability to reanimate the dead but is not portrayed as a villain. Dr. Frankenstein is also an interesting example, as he is often considered a necromancer, although his intentions were not inherently evil. The distinction between raising the dead and being a man of science and creation is blurred in his case. The prevalence of evil necromancers in fiction can be attributed to the fact that they make compelling villains. Defeating an enemy's army usually signals the end of a battle or war, but necromancers have the ability to summon entirely new armies from corpses, evoking a sense of hopelessness.